My name is Nathan Huff. I am 67 years old. I live alone in a quiet house on Westbrook Chase Drive in Alpharetta, Georgia. I had been a quiet man my whole life. Not shy, not weak, quiet. There's a difference. Most people do not learn that difference until it costs them everything. 3 days before this story starts, my daughter told me I was no longer welcome in her family. Her husband stood behind her, smiling like a man who had already won. I said 5 words to her and walked out. By the time I made one phone call, everything they had built came apart in less than 72 hours. Before I tell you what happened, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you are listening from. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to a girl who used to fall asleep in the back seat of my car, long before she became a woman who chose the wrong man over her own father. I raised Paige mostly on my own after her mother, and I separated when she was 9. Tuesday nights were ours. I would pick her up from her mother's house on Providence Road, and we would drive with the windows down, the Georgia air thick with cut grass and pine. She always fell asleep before we reached my street, and I would carry her inside so she would not wake up, her small arms looped around my neck, her hair smelling like strawberry shampoo. My own father taught me something when I was young, working beside him at his hardware store in Marietta. He said, "Son, a loud man spends his whole life proving something. A quiet man has already proven it. He does not need to raise his voice for people to know where he stands." I did not understand that fully, then I understood it completely by the time I was standing at that dinner table 30 years later. I built a career in commercial real estate consulting across North Atlanta, 34 years of it. One handshake and one honest word at a time. My name meant something in rooms full of powerful men. Because I never once cut a corner to get there, Paige grew up watching that. She used to say she wanted to be exactly like me when she got older. Then she married Russell Boyd. Russell had a way of speaking that filled a room before he even said anything worth hearing. Charcoal shirts, firm handshakes, a smile that never quite reached his eyes. I noticed small things about him early. How he introduced himself using my name before his own at parties. Paige's father worked with half the development board in Fulton County. He would say, like it was a business card, "I let it go." Because Paige was happy, or seemed to be, and a father learns which battles are worth the peace. 3 weeks before Father's Day, I got a call from Glenn Tate, an old colleague I had worked alongside for over 20 years. Glenn had seen my name listed on a project prospectus for a company called Boyd Pramer Development. My name listed as a professional reference and strategic advisor. I had never agreed to that. I had never even been asked. Glenn thought I had simply forgotten to mention it, and he called to congratulate me. I thanked him, hung up, and sat at my kitchen table for 15 minutes doing nothing but breathing. Russell had used my name, my 34 years of reputation, folded it up like a napkin, and put it in his pocket without a single conversation. That is the word men like Russell use for everything that used to be trust. A resource. I did not call him. I did not call Paige. I made my decision quietly, the way I make all my important decisions. And I waited for Father's Day. I already knew exactly who could fix this before I ever sat down at that dinner table. His name was Walter Cobb, 71 years old, chairman of the Alpharetta Fulton Development Board. I had known him since 1991, when we served together on a zoning advisory panel. He had come to my retirement dinner. He had visited when my mother passed. Walter valued integrity the way some men value money. Personally, and without apology. I did not call him yet. I wanted to give Russell one chance to fix it himself. Face to face on Father's Day, in front of Paige. I folded the prospectus into my jacket pocket and drove to their house on Himbry Road. A leather journal in a gift bag on the passenger seat for Paige, the good kind. From the shop on Milton Avenue she used to love, I already knew how the evening would likely end. I just did not know yet how far Paige would go to defend him. Dinner started warm enough. Paige had made my favorite dish 20 minutes in. Russell began talking about a new contract, 42 acres, the North Point Corridor project, the kind of deal that puts a man on the map permanently. I asked him how he got in front of the board. Connections, he said smoothly. I already knew whose name had opened that door. I pulled the folded prospectus from my jacket and set it on the table. My name is on page 4, paragraph 2. I told him I never authorized this. Russell tried to soften it, called it complicated. Then he turned to Paige and did something I will remember for the rest of my life. Your father is trying to pull my name from the biggest opportunity of our lives. On Father's Day, he said, his voice going soft and wounded. Paige stood up. She told me to apologize to Russell, to support this family, or I was no longer welcome in this house. In this family, the room went completely still. I looked at my daughter, the same woman I had driven to ballet recitals and stayed up with through fevers. And I understood something I had never let myself see before. She did not need protecting from Russell. She was standing right next to him. I stood, looked her in the eye, and said 5 words. Watch how fast you fall. Then I picked up my jacket and walked out. I got home just before 7 that evening. I did not turn on the television. I sat at my kitchen table and let the last 2 hours settle over me. I thought about giving her one more chance to fix it herself, but wishes do not hold up a family that has already chosen its side. The truth does not. I gave myself that one evening to grieve, all of it, no shortcuts. Then I let it go. I slept better that night than I had in 3 years. I was up at 5:15 the next morning, coffee on before the sun. The way I always start my day, I dressed the way I used to dress when I was still working. Pressed shirt, good trousers, because some phone calls deserve to be made standing up straight. At 8:45, I dialed Walter Cobb's direct line. He picked up on the second ring. I told him everything calmly, in order, with no emotion attached to a single word. My name had been used without my knowledge or consent on a public development contract. My reputation was not something to be borrowed by a man I could not vouch for. Walter went quiet. The serious kind of quiet. Are you prepared to put that in writing? He asked. I will have a signed statement to your office by noon, I told him. 10 minutes. 34 years of reputation, and it only took 10 minutes to tell the truth. I typed the statement myself, drove it to the Boyd office before 11 that morning, and handed it to the receptionist without another word. By Tuesday afternoon, Glenn told me the development board had suspended the entire contract review, pending a full audit. The board's ethics protocol had triggered automatically the moment of fraudulent. Reference was discovered. 2 other firms Russell had been courting went silent within hours. Wednesday morning, my phone started ringing. Russell first, 4 times before 9. Then a text calling it all a misunderstanding. I let it go to voicemail. At 9:30, Paige called. I stared at her name on the screen for a long time and let it ring too. I needed her to arrive at the truth on her own, not because I walked her there. What I learned later was that Russell had come home the night before already cracking, and by Wednesday morning the charm was gone entirely. He turned on Paige the way cornered men turn on whoever is closest, and made it painfully clear exactly what she had been to him the whole time. A door, nothing more, and once the door stopped being useful, he did not even try to hide it. By Wednesday afternoon, Paige was sitting alone in that house on Himbry Road, her husband gone, her phone in her hand, looking at my number. Exactly 3 days after Father's Day, my father used to tell me that a quiet man has already proven himself and does not need to raise his voice to be understood. I always thought he simply meant patience. He meant something deeper. He meant that silence, used correctly, is not surrender. It is the most powerful thing a man can carry. Russell lost the contract, his reputation across North Atlanta's development community, and eventually, my daughter's trust in him. Walter Cobb still calls me twice a year for lunch, same as he has for 30 years. As for me, I still have my name, and for the first time in 22 years, I have a daughter who is learning what it actually means to stand on her own. I think about my father every time I sit at that kitchen table in the quiet of the morning. And I think some men spend their whole lives proving something. I only ever had to prove it once. If you have ever had to stay quiet and let someone fall on their own so the lesson would actually stick, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, and if this one moved you. Subscribe to Dad's Revenge Tales. There's more where this came from.